Now the latest on that major hack attack against Sony. First, the studio's movies release.
Sony canceling the movie's Christmas premiere after hackers linked to North Korea threatened to attack theaters that showed the comedy.
Did North Korea really go after Hollywood? Could a single movie spark an international cyber war? Imagine a film so controversial that it triggers one of the most devastating cyber attacks in history. Well, back in 2014, that's exactly what many believe happened to Sony Pictures. But was North Korea really behind it? And if so, why did they care so much about a comedy film? Let's dive into the real story behind the Sony hack and find out what really went down. The movie that sparked controversy. It all started with a movie that, on the surface, seemed like any other over-the-top Hollywood comedy. The Interview was a film that had all the typical ingredients for a blockbuster. Seth Rogen's quirky humor, James Franco's charm, and a wild satirical plot. But what set it apart was its audacious storyline. Rogen and Franco played two bumbling journalists who land an exclusive interview with Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea. However, the CIA recruits them for a much darker mission: assassinate Kim Jong-un during the interview. Now, this might seem like typical Hollywood fare, poking fun at global politics and authoritarian regimes. But while Western audiences may have viewed it as just another comedy, things were different in North Korea. Their government didn't find it funny at all. In fact, they were outraged. Even before the film's release, North Korea's regime condemned The Interview. The country's foreign ministry issued a statement labeling the film an act of terrorism and a blatant provocation. They warned the United States of merciless retaliation if the movie was allowed to be distributed. For a regime that tightly controls its image and media, especially one as isolated as North Korea, The Interview wasn't just a comedic jab. It was a direct insult to their leader and the state's authority. But here's the thing, this was more than just bluster. North Korea's response wasn't just about throwing a tantrum. In a country where propaganda is meticulously crafted to present the leader as an infallible godlike figure, having Kim Jong-un ridiculed on the global stage was considered an attack on the regime's very survival. For North Korea, a film mocking their supreme leader wasn't just offensive, it was dangerous. The Sony hack. What happened? On November 24, 2014, chaos erupted at Sony Pictures. The company's employees turned on their computers only to be greeted by a terrifying sight: a grim red skull and a message that read, "Hacked by #GOP." The so-called Guardians of Peace. It wasn't just a prank or a minor breach, it was an all-out cyber assault. Sony's entire digital infrastructure had been compromised. Confidential emails, personal employee information, unreleased films, and sensitive financial documents were stolen and then leaked to the public. It didn't take long for the hackers to reveal their demands. The Guardians of Peace weren't after money or corporate secrets. They wanted one thing: for Sony to cancel the release of The Interview. If the company didn't comply, the group threatened to unleash even more damaging data, leaving Sony and anyone connected to the film vulnerable. The timing couldn't have been worse. The attack came just weeks before The Interview was set to premiere in theaters. Initially, Sony attempted to push through, unwilling to cave to the threats. But soon, major theater chains across the United States started pulling out. They feared that the threats of violence against theater showing the film could be real, with some chains citing concerns over possible terrorist attacks. Facing mounting pressure and growing panic, Sony made a stunning decision. They pulled the film from its scheduled release. For a major Hollywood studio, this was unprecedented. Movies had been boycotted and banned in certain countries before, but a full-scale cyber attack forcing a studio to cancel a film's release? It was unheard of. The entire entertainment industry and the world watched in disbelief. But was this really about The Interview? Was the movie so offensive that a group of hackers would go to such lengths to prevent its release? Or was there something more sinister behind this? The Guardians of Peace insisted they were acting in response to the movie, but the sophistication of the attack raised serious questions. The hacking tools they used were not something you'd expect from a few disgruntled movie fans. It pointed to something much larger, something potentially state-sponsored. Evidence linking North Korea to the hack. In the days following the attack, the US government launched a full investigation, determined to uncover who was behind the massive cyber breach at Sony Pictures. By December 19, 2014, just under a month after the hack began, the FBI made a bold claim. They had enough evidence to point the finger at North Korea. The FBI's announcement was a bombshell. They cited technical similarities between the malware used in the Sony hack and previous attacks linked to North Korea, particularly a series of attacks targeting South Korean institutions. These past cyber attacks had been traced back to North Korean hacker groups, specifically the group known as Lazarus. This group had a history of targeting both financial institutions and government entities, and the Sony hack appeared to fit their profile. One key piece of evidence was the code. According to the FBI, the software used in the Sony attack shared components with malware North Korean hackers had used in the past. It wasn't just a coincidence. These types of connections, though subtle, are critical in the world of cybersecurity, where hackers often leave behind digital fingerprints in the form of coding techniques or server usage. But it wasn't just the technical evidence. The timing, the demands, and North Korea's vocal opposition to the interview seemed to provide a clear motive. North Korea had publicly condemned the movie months before the hack and warned of merciless retaliation if the film was released. Now, with a cyber attack directly tied to threats against the interview, many believed that the regime had followed through on its threats. However, the evidence wasn't just about motive and malware. The hackers had used Internet Protocol or IP addresses associated with North Korea during parts of the attack. Though they attempted to obscure their tracks by routing through servers in other countries. Despite these efforts, the FBI claimed that traces of North Korean involvement still remained. With these pieces of the puzzle in place, the US government stood by its conclusion. North Korea was behind the Sony hack. But not everyone was convinced. Despite the FBI's findings, many cybersecurity experts raised questions about the evidence. The doubts and skepticism. Despite the FBI's confident accusations, many remained unconvinced that North Korea masterminded the Sony hack. As more details surfaced, cybersecurity experts, journalists, and even intelligence officials questioned whether North Korea, known for its limited tech infrastructure, could have executed such a sophisticated attack. Some pointed out that hackers often borrow techniques to disguise their origins, and the similarities to North Korean malware didn't conclusively prove their involvement. A new theory suggested the attack could have been an inside job by a disgruntled former Sony employee, possibly motivated by layoffs. Others speculated it might have been another nation-state framing North Korea. In cyber warfare, deception is common, and leaving false trails is a known tactic. These doubts cast a shadow over the FBI's findings. Skeptics argued that the evidence was largely circumstantial, raising questions about whether North Korea was truly responsible. The attack underscored the murky nature of cyber attribution, leaving the door open to alternative explanations. The fallout and aftermath. The Sony Pictures hack in 2014 was a major cyber attack that exposed sensitive data and led to the release of unreleased films online. The hack caused significant damage to Sony's reputation and sparked debates about cybersecurity, corporate vulnerability, and freedom of expression. The incident also highlighted the growing threat of cyber warfare and the potential for hackers to disrupt major industries. What do you think? Could a single film really provoke such a massive cyber attack, or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing stories like this. And if you like this video, click the next one shown on the screen. Thanks for watching.